Hello and welcome to the Target UPSC Prelims 2024 series. And in this, we will be covering the subject of environment and geography, and this will be the episode 3 of this series. So let's begin. First topic is cyclone Mocha. So cyclone Mocha was formed in the Bay of Bengal. So if we'll talk about this is peninsular India, then this is Bay of Bengal and this is Arabian Sea and the area of the Eastern Ghat. So this was formed in the Bay of Bengal and it has been classified as a super cyclone. Super cyclone because it was very powerful and it moved with a very high speed. And this was the most powerful cyclone ever on earth in the year 2023. So this was the most powerful cyclone in the year 2023. 16 cyclones so far in both hemispheres in the year 2023. So both in the southern hemisphere and in the northern hemisphere, in total in the year 2023, 16 cyclones occurred. Now let's know about cyclone Mocha. So it originated in the Bay of Bengal. Then the name Mocha has been given by the country Yemen. This is an important point for you to remember, that who has suggested this name, because recently we have seen in the PCS that questions are being asked that who suggested this name. So Yemen suggested the name Mocha. It was named after a port city which is situated on the Red Sea. So it was situated on the Red Sea. So the port city is known for coffee production and the city's popular cafe drink, that is Cafe Mocha. So the port city has a very famous cafe drink and that is the Mocha. And the wind speed recorded in this cyclone was 277 kilometers per hour. So per hour it was moving with the speed of 277 kilometers. An Amphan cyclone which occurred in the year 2020 with speed 268 kilometers per hour was seen in the year 2020. So cyclone Mocha even crossed the speed of cyclone Amphan. In the year 2021, a speed of 222 km per hour was recorded. So, and this is one of the reasons why it was called as the super cyclone. Now, let us know about the cyclone. So, cyclones are basically the centers of low air pressure. So, imagine whenever you see pictures of cyclones, you see a formation and which is moving in the circular direction. So in the circular movement you observe. So it basically starts in the ocean, large area it needs, and they're very powerful, and with them the high wind, rainfall, and you can say lightning, all these things occurs simultaneously with it. So they are basically a centers of low air pressure around which there are tough lines of increasing air pressure. So in between there is a low pressure and sideways it has high pressure. Then in this the wind direction is from the periphery towards the center. That is why it moves in the circular direction. Now imagine these are the periphery. So the movement will be from periphery towards the center, and that is why it moves in the circular direction. The wind circulation occurs at the anti-clockwise direction in the northern hemisphere and in the clockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. Now imagine if this is equator, this is southern hemisphere and this is northern hemisphere. So in the southern hemisphere it moves in the clockwise direction, while in the northern hemisphere it moves in the anti-clockwise direction. Then it can form circular, semicircular, oval or V shape. So these are the shapes that it can take, and there are two basic type of cyclones, that is tropical cyclones and temperate cyclones. Now let's talk first of all about the temperate cyclones. So they are low, then it occurs between 35 to 65 degree latitude in both hemispheres. So if this is equator, then from 35 degree to 65 degree temperate cyclones occur in both hemispheres. Then there is low pressure in the center while the pressure is high towards the periphery, as we just discussed. In this, the circulatory system becomes anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. So this direction becomes important for you to know, because this can be asked, that in how is the direction of cyclone in the northern hemisphere and how is the direction of cyclone in the southern hemisphere. So don't get confused between anti-clockwise or clockwise direction. Now let us know about the tropical cyclone. So the cyclone arising between Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So if this is equator, so the cyclone between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. So the cyclones which takes place between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer is what is tropical cyclone. Then the origin is oceans of tropical regions, because it needs a larger area, and in between it needs a low pressure, and in the periphery it has high pressure. These aggressive winds bring destruction, heavy rainfall and storms, and these heavy rainfall, high wind speed storms is what causes destruction all around, and it is known by different names at different places. That is, in Indian Ocean they are called cyclone, in India we call them cyclones, in Atlantic Ocean they are called hurricanes, in West Pacific and South China Sea they are called typhoon, while in Australia they are called willies. These are important names, can be asked in the examination. Then there are few favorable conditions for the origin and development of the cyclone, very important, can be asked both in prelims and in mains examination. So that is large sea surface, and this is the reason that why they take place or why they originate in the ocean. The temperature is more than 27 degrees Celsius, not very cold, not very warm also, but little warmer conditions it needs for its origin. Existence of Coriolis force, and because of this Coriolis force the circular movement takes place. Then decrease in difference in speed of vertical winds, and this is important. Vertical winds means winds in the vertical direction. Then pressure of weak, presence of weak low pressure. So this is the low pressure zone in between, or low level cyclonic circulation. Upper divergence on sea floor system. So this is the upper divergence of sea floor system. Then the speciality is that there is a circulation of strong spiral winds around its center, which is called its eye. So the center of the cyclone is this, and this is called the eye, and eye has low pressure zone. Wait, I hope this is better visible now. So this is eye, and this has low pressure zone, while the area around it has high pressure zone, and that is why air moves from outside to inside, and because of the Coriolis force it moves in the circular direction. Then the diameter of circulation system is 150 to 250 kilometers, and the diameter between 600 and 1200 kilometers over the Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean. And the broad the diameter would be, the more movement it will do and more area it will need. Then now let's talk about the term anticyclone. So anticyclone is a cyclical flow of winds, but unlike a cyclone there is high air pressure in its center. So cyclone, there in between there is low pressure, while anticyclone it has high pressure. It indicates clear weather conditions, while cyclone does not indicate clear weather conditions. It is very big in size. Then wind direction is right in the northern hemisphere and left in the southern hemisphere. So right in the northern hemisphere and left in the southern hemisphere, opposite of cyclones. Now occurrence of cyclone in India. So there is a biennial cyclonic season which is between March to May and October to December. When we say biennial, it means 2 times in a year. So there is a biennial cyclonic season which is between March to May and October to December. And generally tropical cyclones develop in the northern Indian Ocean region, that is the region of Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, that is tropical cyclones. And during pre-monsoon, that is April to June, and post-monsoon, that is October to December. Now the second news that we will be discussing is the North and South Pole. North and South Pole. So if this is Earth, we have one North Pole and then one South Pole. So recently a luminous phenomena called aurora was observed at the North and South Poles. So this luminous phenomena means certain kind of light was observed both at the North Pole and at the South Pole. So at both the poles, a luminous phenomena was observed, and this luminous phenomena has been named as aurora. So this term can be asked. This phenomena is known as aurora borealis at the North Pole and aurora australis at the South Pole. So names can also be asked, but remember the name aurora, A-U-R-O-R-A. It is caused by the interaction of charged particles from the sun with the Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere. So it is caused by the interaction. Interaction means when two things are meeting. So on one side we have the charged particles from the sun. So imagine if this is sun, the charged particle of the sun, and this we have Earth, then the magnetic field of the Earth and atmosphere. So charged particles of the sun and magnetic field of the Earth. So when there is an interaction between these two, then the luminous phenomena was observed at the North Pole and at the South Pole. And this phenomena have the potential to supercharge auroras, which displays a spectacular sight in the night sky. So when this phenomena happened during the night time, a phenomena was observed, and this spectacular sight was because certain kind of light was also observed, which is unusual. Then aurora is made up of gases and particles of oxygen and nitrogen. Remember it that what it is made of: gases, oxygen, nitrogen. Then when these particles collide with the atmosphere, energy is emitted in the form of light. So when these particles, sun's particles, charged particles, when they collide with the atmosphere, energy, certain kind of energy is emitted, and that energy emitted in the form of light, which was observed. The colors seen in an aurora depend on the type of gas and the altitude of its collision. So these 2 points are on which the color which was seen during the luminous phenomena depends on it, that is type of gas and altitude of its collision. Next comes the Chitlui River. So the Chitlui River lies in the northeastern state of Mizoram. Remember the name of the state, that is Mizoram. So the river is facing pollution and erosion due to unplanned urbanization, encroachment, and businesses located on its bank. And this is also the problem that not only the Chitlui River is going through, but all the other rivers are going through, that the problem of urbanization, industrialization, encroachment, soil erosion that they are facing, and because of which the river is getting polluted. Now a few of the key points: that it is situated in an alluvial valley at an altitude of about 1000 meters. So it is situated at an altitude of about 1000 meters, and its origin is in the range of North Aizawl, and Aizawl is the capital of which state? Mizoram, and Mizoram is a northeastern state. So it origins from the North Aizawl, and it flows about 20 kilometers before joining the Turial River. So Chitlui River, related to Mizoram, is in news because of it facing pollution and erosion, and the origin is in North Aizawl, and the name of the range is Bawangkong Range. the river has become a dumping site for various types of waste generated by the urban population, because see, look at this picture, you can very clearly see that the river does not have much water. So river does not have much water, and the people are throwing, or very clearly it can be seen that the people are throwing waste. Now let's talk about the security aspect. So this initiative is being taken by Zoram Research Foundation to prevent pollution in the river, and Zoram Research Foundation is a non-profit organization and it works for the traditional water management in Mizoram. So in Mizoram they work for the traditional water management, that is usage of the water, so increasing the usage of the water. And the institute started an initiative to save the Chitlui River in the year 2007. So this initiative is not new, it is an old initiative, by conducting surveys, awareness campaigns, cleanup campaigns and advocacy programs. Then to protect this, the government of Mizoram has passed the Chitlui Act 2018, and the name is Chitlui Prevention and Control of Water Pollution Act in the year 2018. And this law prohibits, and because of this act, it prohibits dumping of animal carcasses, biomedical waste or any other waste into the river, but still people are dumping the waste into the river even after the act has been, or the law has been passed. Now few other things is, the largest river of Mizoram is Chimtuipui, that is 138.46 kilometer long. So the largest river of Mizoram is Chimtuipui River, and its origin is in Myanmar, which was earlier known as Burma. The river is divided into parts and has 4 tributaries. So the major rivers of Mizoram are the Lang, Turial and Tuival. Lang, Turial and Tuival, and then there is Chimtuipui, which pass through the northern region and ultimately join the Barak River in Assam. Then comes the next topic, that is Urilite. So the next topic is Urilite. Then according to a study, India's Dhala crater, Dhala. So India's Dhala crater was formed from a meteorite called Urilite. So there is a crater, look at this image. It means that a meteorite has come down and it has formed a very big, you can say a very big, the ground has been suppressed at that point of time and a very big crater was formed. So according to a study, India's Dhala crater was formed from a meteorite called Urilite. So Dhala crater has been formed because of a meteorite, and the name of the meteorite is Urilite. So the Dhala crater was formed about 2500 to 1700 million years ago. So it has been formed since a very long period of time, and the Dhala crater of Madhya Pradesh is the largest crater in Asia, formed by such a collision, and the 7th largest in the world. So in Asia, when we talk about the crater, so Dhala crater, which is in Madhya Pradesh, is largest in Asia, and when we talk about all over the world, so it is the 7th largest. It is one of the 3 major craters formed by meteorite impacts in India. So in India, in total, there are 3 craters which has been formed because of the meteorite impact. The other 2 of these are located in Ramgarh in Rajasthan and Lonar in Maharashtra. And Lonar Lake was also in news few months back because of the color of the water. Then Uralites are a rare class of ancient meteorites. It is a small component of meteorites that hit the earth. So when it hit the earth, it formed a crater, and that crater has been named as Dhala crater, largest in Asia and 7th largest in the world. They are made up of silicate rock. You should remember this, because the formation or how it is formed and of what component it is formed can be asked. So they are made of silicate rock, and these include mostly olivine and pyroxene rocks. Pyroxene rocks and olivine. These contain less than 10% carbon. So carbon is present but less than 10%. Metal, sulfides and some fine grained silicates. So the components are silicates, sulfides, carbon. Then next is Karst Plateau. Karst, K-A-A-S, Karst Plateau. So Karst Plateau is located in Satara district of Maharashtra. Karst Plateau, Maharashtra. It falls in the Western Ghat biosphere region. This is important, Maharashtra and then Western Ghat. It is also known as the Valley of Flower, and it is not the same Valley of Flower which is present in Uttarakhand. It is different. And the name of the plateau is named after the Kasa tree. And this plateau is made up of igneous rocks. They are made up of igneous rocks. Igneous rocks means you can say that when volcano erupts, so when the lava comes out, so you can say that it is made up of igneous rocks. So igneous rocks means, see, igneous rocks is one of the 3 types of major rocks. So when the volcano erupts, so the lava which or the magma which comes out, and when that lava or magma solidifies, it forms into igneous rocks. So this plateau is made up of igneous rocks. And this plateau is included in the UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site list under the title Western Ghats. So overall it comes under the Western Ghats, and it is included in the UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site list. Then next comes the Hindu Kush Himalayas. The Asian Development Bank, that is ADB, the Asian Development Bank has launched an initiative called, the name of the initiative is Building Adaptation and Resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalayas 74. So this is the name of the initiative, and what you need to remember is that who has launched the initiative, and it is ADB, which is the Asian Development Bank. Building Adaptation and Resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalayas 74. And the objective is to solve the problems caused by climate change in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So climate change is causing many problems, and the regions which are most vulnerable to it being the mountains, and Hindu Kush region is also one of those. And it outlines state-of-the-art investment, risk assessment and risk management for large-scale infrastructure development. It will provide support to Bhutan and Nepal, which will be most affected with regard to the climate adaptation work, that whatever it takes to adapt to the changing scenario, it will help those countries who are suffering because of it. Now about the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So it is approximately 4.3 million square kilometer, which is spread over the area, and the expansion is Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, Nepal and Pakistan. So this whole area you can say is Hindu Kush because it contains many countries. And the world's highest mountain peaks such as Mount Everest and Kanchenjunga are located in the Hindu Kush mountain region. And this area is also called as the third pole of the earth or the water tower of Asia because of its huge height, because it has the largest ice reserves after the polar regions. So first polar regions have the ice reserves, that is the presence of glacier, and after that, after the polar regions, then they are present in the Hindu Kush region, and that is why also it is called as the third pole. And this area is a region of newly founded mountains. As we all know that the folded mountains, Mount Everest are example of folded mountains, and Mount Everest is also considered as one of the youngest mountains to be formed. And they are continuously rising mountains also because they are folded mountains, and due to which this area is highly sensitive to disasters like earthquake and landslides. Next comes the topic of Uttarkashi. So the rat hole mining. The rat hole mining method was used to rescue workers trapped in Uttarkashi tunnel accident. So in the Uttarkashi tunnel accident, a technique was adopted and followed because of to rescue the workers, and that method is known as the rat hole mining. Rat hole mining was used for horizontal drilling. It means horizontal drilling to create a safe passage through the debris remaining at a depth of 10 to 12 meters in the collapsed section of the Tilkyara tunnel. Now imagine that this is the area in which a horizontal hole is created and a horizontal drilling is done, through which a passage is created from which a very thin, you can say, and that is why it is called rat hole. A very small hole is created through which a safe passage is created, through which a material can be passed, and on that the workers can also be transported from one place to another place, or can be passed from one place to another place, and the depth could be of 10 to 12 meters. Then this tunnel is part of the Char Dham Marg project in Uttarakhand, and in the rat hole mining, a narrow tunnel is made in the ground. So in this, a narrow tunnel is made in the ground. These tunnels are generally of such small width that only one person can enter it, and that is why it is called the rat hole mining. First of all, it is the hole is, or the narrow tunnel is made at a depth, and then it is very small in size. These tunnels are made to extract minerals like coal. Maximum rat hole mining in the country takes place in Meghalaya, and mining also takes place at a very high rate in the state of Meghalaya. And the reason for this is that the coal bed found there is thin, and the coal bed which is found there is also in very high quantity. Once the tunnel is dug, coal miners reach the coal inside the tunnel using ropes or bamboo ladders, and at one go, single workers go inside it. Current status of ban on rat hole mining. Rat hole mining is banned in India, and the National Green Tribunal has banned the rat hole mining in the year 2014. So it has been about a decade that the National Green Tribunal has banned the rat hole mining in India. And NGT had called this method unscientific and unsafe for workers. However, in the year 2019, the Supreme Court had said that if coal is mined through this method under the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act, so under the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act, if coal is mined through the rat hole mining, then, and Mineral Consensus Rules 1960, then the NGT ban will not apply. So even if rat hole mining is done, but it is done under the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act and Mineral Concession Rules 1960, then NGT ban will not apply. So the ban which the National Green Tribunal has put on the rat hole mining in 2014, it will not apply. Next is the Willingdon Island. Willingdon Island is situated in Kerala, close to the Vembanad Lake. So there have been calls to rejuvenate the Willingdon Island because the Willingdon Island is losing its authenticity. So the calls are made to rejuvenate it. The island has become vacant after the container terminal operations were shifted to Velarpadam, Kerala. So after the operations has shifted to Velarpadam from Wellington Island, it has become vacant. Wellington Island is located near Kochi city. So look at this map. This is the Wellington Island and this is the Kochi city. Then it is one of the largest man-made islands in India, and it was built in the year 1933. So it is old. It is not that recently it has been built, and remember that it is man-made. And it was named after Lord Wellington, who was the British Viceroy of India. Then the island was formed from soil dredged during the deepening of the famous Vembanad Lake to create the modern Kochi port. So there is a very famous Vembanad Lake in Kerala. So for the deepening of the Vembanad Lake, so the soil was dredged from the lake, and it was put at one place, and that place became the Wellington Island. Now about the Vembanad Lake. And Vembanad Lake is also known as the Vembanad Khayal, Vembanad Kol, Punnamada Lake, and Kochi Lake. And it is spread over several districts of Kerala, covering an area of more than 2033.02 kilometers. So remember, it is a backwater lake and then situated in Kerala, and it is very famous for its boat race. And the source of the lake are 4 rivers, that is Minachil, Achankovil, Pampa, and Manimala. So these are the 4 rivers which are source to this lake, and it is separated from the Arabian Sea by a narrow island. So this is Vembanad and this is the Arabian Sea. And a popular lagoon in Kerala forms the backwater strength, and it is very famous for being a backwater. Then Vamankali, that is Nehru Trophy boat race. See this image? So these are long boats, and this boat race takes place in the Vembanad Lake. So Vamankali, which is a Nehru Trophy boat race, is a snake boat race which is organized every year in the lake, every year. In the year 2002, it was included in the list of wetlands of international importance, that is Ramsar Convention. So they are also included under the Ramsar Convention, and it is India's second largest Ramsar site after Sundarbans. So India's largest Ramsar site is Sundarbans, second largest is Vembanad Lake. The government of India has identified the Vembanad wetlands under the National Wetland Conservation Program. Then within the Vembanad Lake, there is a bird sanctuary situated, and the name is the Kumarakom Bird Sanctuary. Kumarakom Bird Sanctuary. Next is the Indian Ocean Dipole and the El Nino. And the topic of El Nino we keep on hearing in news because we hear that El Nino is going on, and it was there in the year 2023 and it is continuing in the year 2024. So because of El Nino in India, the effect is that less rainfall takes place. So this year El Nino is already strongly active in the Pacific Ocean, but despite this, several meteorological agencies have expressed the possibility of a positive Indian Ocean dipole which is developing. The IOD reflects the difference in sea surface temperatures between the Western Indian Ocean and the Eastern Indian Ocean, which is called the dipole. So imagine this is a Indian Ocean, then there is Western Indian Ocean, Eastern Indian Ocean. So the difference in the sea surface of both is what creates the Indian Ocean dipole. Then the relationship between the El Nino Southern Oscillation and the Indian Ocean dipole. So the air circulation in the Indian Ocean is from west to east. So in the Indian Ocean, the air circulation is from west to east. At upper levels, it is in the opposite direction. So at the upper level, it is in opposite direction, but if we talk about normally, then it is from west to east. And in a normal year, warm water from the Western Pacific Ocean enters the Indian Ocean, and a lot has to do with the process which is followed in the El Nino, that is movement of the Peruvian current, and then the difference of the temperatures, and then movement of air from one place to another place, and then with it the movement of warm water or the cold water from one place to another place. This heats the air and rises up and strengthens the air circulation. and the western part of the Pacific Ocean becomes cooler than the normal during the El Nino. And due to this, the eastern part of the Indian Ocean also cools down. This helps in the formation of positive Indian Ocean dipole. And when the western Indian Ocean becomes much warmer than the eastern Indian Ocean, it is called positive Indian Ocean dipole, and vice versa, opposite of it would be negative formation of negative Indian Ocean dipole. See, complete process is not going to be asked in the prelims examination. What you need to know is, first of all, which current is involved in the El Nino formation, that is the Peruvian current. Then where does it take part, that is the Pacific Ocean. The country is Peru, and what effect does it have on India, and that is the negative rainfall. Indian Ocean positive IOD helps rainfall over African coast and Indian subcontinent, that is positive Indian Ocean dipole. Earthquake in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. So recently several earthquakes of low intensity were recorded in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, and due to tectonic activities, the Himalayan region of the Indian plate along with the Eurasian plate becomes vulnerable to earthquake. And we all know that the tectonic plate movement or the tectonic activity are one of the major reasons because of which the earthquake takes place or happens. And the Indian plate is going under the Eurasian plate in the north and northeast direction. So what happens is, imagine this is Eurasian plate, and Indian plate is going under it, Indian plate. So when this movement of tectonic plate take place, the formation of earthquake also takes place. There are three major tectonic units south of the Himalayas, that is main central thrust, main boundary thrust, and Himalayan frontal thrust or main frontal thrust. Now let us know about earthquake. The meaning of the word earthquake is earth's vibration, that is the movement of the earth. It is a natural phenomena, and due to the release of energy from inside the earth. So earth is made up of earth, there is core, crust and mantle, and when the energy is released from inside the earth, the waves are generated. So when these waves are generated, they move in all the directions and cause the earth to vibrate. Now imagine this is earth core, crust, core, mantle and crust, and from it the energy is released. So when the energy is released, it moves in all the direction, and when it moves in all the direction, it causes vibrations, and because of which the movement of the tectonic plates takes place and then earthquake occurs. The waves generated by earthquake are called seismic waves, which move on the earth's surface, and the seismic waves are of two types, that is P type and Q type. Seismic waves are measured with seismographs. So you will always see you will see a graph on which the movement takes place. Then the place above the earth's surface where seismic waves reach first is called the epicenter. So imagine this is earth's surface. The earth's surface for the very first time where the seismic waves means earthquake waves, where they reach for the very first time. Imagine this is the place where it reaches for the very first time, then it will be called epicenter. And there are different types of earthquakes, and that is fault zone earthquake, tectonic earthquake, volcanic earthquake, human induced earthquake can be important from mains perspective. Then the vibration intensity can be measured on the Richter scale. Then India is divided into 4 seismic zones, that is 2, 3, 4 and 5, and earlier there were 5 seismic zones, but now there are 4 seismic zones. And the place below the earth's surface where the epicenter of an earthquake is located is called the hypocenter. Now imagine that this is the place where epicenter is. So epicenter, which we just learned in the last slide, it was the first place where the seismic wave reaches or touches. So that is called epicenter. So the place which is below the earth's surface where the epicenter of an earthquake is located. So the epicenter of the earthquake, a place which is below it, then this is called hypocenter. So that will be called hypocenter. Then there are three types of seismic waves, that is primary waves, secondary waves, or surface waves, that is P waves and S waves. A question has been asked in the preliminary examinations with regard to the P waves and S waves. And the Bureau of Indian Standards, so the Bureau of Indian Standards has divided the country into 4 seismic zones by combining the first 2 zones together. So the organization which has divided India into 4 different seismic zones is the Bureau of Indian Standards. BIS is the official agency for publishing seismic hazard maps and codes. So the official agency which looks into all the aspects with regard to earthquakes, so that is the Bureau of Indian Standards. So that's all with regard to today's episode of Environment and Geography. What we learned in today's episode was earthquake, Indian Ocean Dipole and El Nino, Vembanad Lake, Willingdon Island, Uttarkashi, that is the red hole mining, Hindu Kush Himalayas, Karst Plateau, Uralite. Then there was Chitlui River, North and South Pole. Then there was cyclone. So this is it. And keep staying with us and keep on watching other episodes also. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to